What makes someone a true princess? Is it the crown on her head? The castle she lives in? The fancy gowns she wears? Or is it something else entirely? Something you can't see with your eyes, but can only feel with your heart? This is the story of a prince who searched the whole world for a real princess, and the stormy night that changed everything. Once upon a time, in a kingdom of rolling hills and sparkling rivers, there lived a prince named Alexander. Prince Alexander had everything a prince could wish for: a magnificent castle with 100 rooms, gardens filled with flowers from every corner of the world, and a library so vast that you could get lost in it for days. But Alexander wasn't happy. You see, Alexander was a thoughtful young man with a gentle heart. He loved reading books by the fire, taking long walks through the meadows, and having conversations about anything and everything. What he wanted more than anything was to find someone special to share his life with, a true princess who would be his partner and his friend. But she must be a real princess, his mother, the queen, always said. Not someone pretending to be one. A true princess, through and through. The queen was a wise woman who had seen many things in her long life. She knew that titles and tiaras didn't make someone special. True royalty, she believed, came from within. And so Prince Alexander set off on a great journey to find his true princess. He traveled to kingdoms near and far. He sailed across shimmering seas and climbed snow-capped mountains. He visited palaces made of marble and castles carved into cliffsides. And he met many princesses. There was Princess Cordelia, who had the longest golden hair in all the land, but she spent all her time looking in mirrors and never once asked Alexander about himself. There was Princess Beatrice, who owned 1,000 beautiful dresses, but she laughed at the servants and was unkind to her horses. There was Princess Marguerite, who could speak 12 languages, but she only ever talked about how wonderful she was. Princess after princess, kingdom after kingdom. Some were beautiful, some were clever, some were rich beyond imagination, but none of them felt right. None of them felt real. How will I ever know? Alexander asked his mother when he returned home, tired and discouraged. How can you tell if someone is a true princess? The queen smiled mysteriously. When the time comes, my dear, I will know. Trust me. Alexander didn't understand what she meant, but he trusted his mother, so he waited. Weeks passed, then months. The prince grew sadder and quieter. He began to wonder if he would ever find what he was looking for. And then, one autumn evening, everything changed. Before we find out what happens on this fateful night, if you're enjoying this story, why not hit that subscribe button and ring the bell? That way, you'll never miss a fairy tale. Now, let's see who comes knocking. It was the most terrible storm the kingdom had ever seen. Rain poured down in sheets so thick you couldn't see your hand in front of your face. Thunder crashed and rumbled like giants bowling in the sky. Lightning split the darkness, turning night into day for just a flash, before plunging everything back into blackness. The royal family sat in the great hall, listening to the storm rage outside. The fire crackled in the hearth, and the wind howled against the windows like a wolf trying to get in. And then, knock, knock, knock. Someone was at the castle gate. Who could possibly be out on a night like this? The king wondered aloud. He went to open the gate himself, holding a lantern against the driving rain. And there, standing in the storm, was a young woman. Oh, but what a sight she was. She was completely soaked from head to toe. Her hair hung in dripping tangles around her face. Her dress, which might once have been fine, was splattered with mud. Water streamed from her clothes and pooled at her feet. She looked like she had swum through a river and then been tumbled about by the wind. She didn't look like a princess at all. "Please," she said, shivering. "I've lost my way in the storm. My carriage broke down miles from here, and I've been walking for hours. I'm so sorry to trouble you, but might I come in to warm myself?" Of course, the king exclaimed, ushering her inside. "You poor thing! Come in at once!" The young woman stepped into the great hall, leaving a trail of water behind her. She looked around at the magnificent room, the soaring ceilings, the golden chandeliers, the portraits of kings and queens, and her eyes went wide. "Oh my," she breathed. "This is the royal castle, isn't it? I'm so terribly sorry to intrude. I had no idea." "Nonsense," said the queen, hurrying forward with a warm blanket. "No one should be out in weather like this. You're welcome here. Now tell us, dear, who are you?" The young woman wrapped the blanket around her shivering shoulders and curtsied as best she could. "My name is Rosalind," she said. "I'm a princess from the kingdom beyond the mountains. I was traveling to visit my grandmother when the storm caught me." "A princess?" Prince Alexander looked at the bedraggled girl with her muddy dress and tangled hair. She certainly didn't look like any princess he had ever met. But then she smiled at him, a warm, genuine smile that lit up her whole face despite her soggy, sorry state, and something in Alexander's heart stirred. "You must be freezing," he said, stepping forward. "Please, come sit by the fire." As Rosalind warmed herself by the crackling flames, she and Alexander began to talk. And talk. And talk. She asked him about his favorite books, and her eyes lit up when he mentioned the same stories she loved. She told him about her kingdom, not about its riches or its size, but about the people who lived there, the farmers she helped during harvest, the children she read to in the village school. She laughed easily and listened carefully. She thanked the servants who brought her tea. When a kitchen cat wandered into the hall, she bent down to scratch its ears, cooing at it like an old friend. Alexander had never met anyone quite like her, but the queen was watching carefully. She had seen many people claim to be princesses over the years. Some of them were very good at pretending. How could she know if this girl was the real thing? And then the queen had an idea. "My dear," she said to Rosalind, "you must stay the night. The storm is far too dangerous for travel. I'll have a room prepared for you at once." While Rosalind continued talking with Alexander, the queen hurried to the guest chambers with a secret plan. First, she placed a single pea, one tiny, little pea, on the wooden bed frame. Then she ordered the servants to pile mattress upon mattress on top of it. One mattress, 2, 3. They kept stacking until there were 20 mattresses towering toward the ceiling. But the queen wasn't finished. On top of the 20 mattresses, she had them add 20 feather beds, the softest, fluffiest bedding in the entire castle. When they were done, the bed was so tall that Rosalind would need a ladder to climb into it. "There," said the queen with a mysterious smile. "Now we shall see what we shall see." That night, Rosalind climbed the little ladder up to her extraordinary bed. She had never seen anything like it. So many mattresses, so many feather beds. Surely this would be the most comfortable sleep of her life. She snuggled under the silken covers, closed her eyes, and tried to sleep. But something was wrong. She tossed. She turned. She flipped her pillow to the cool side. She kicked off the covers, then pulled them back on again. No matter what she did, she simply could not get comfortable. There was something lumpy beneath her, something poking and prodding, no matter how she shifted and squirmed. It was like trying to sleep on a rock. Rosalind barely slept a wink all night. The next morning, the royal family gathered for breakfast. The storm had passed, and golden sunlight streamed through the windows. But poor Rosalind looked exhausted. There were shadows under her eyes, and she couldn't stop yawning. "Did you sleep well, my dear?" the Queen asked, watching her closely. Rosalind hesitated. She didn't want to seem ungrateful. The royal family had been so kind to take her in, but she had always been taught to tell the truth. "I'm so sorry," she said, blushing. "Please don't think me rude. The bed was beautiful, truly it was, but I hardly slept at all. There was something hard underneath me. I don't know what it could have been. I'm afraid I'm black and blue all over this morning." The Queen's face broke into the widest smile. She exclaimed, clapping her hands together. "I knew it. Only a true princess could be so sensitive, so delicate, that she would feel a single pea through 20 mattresses and 20 feather beds." Rosalind's eyes went wide. "A pea? There was a pea under all of that?" "Indeed there was," the Queen laughed. "It was a test, my dear, and you passed beautifully." Prince Alexander stared at Rosalind with wonder in his eyes. All those princesses he had met on his travels, princesses with their fine gowns and polished manners, none of them were as real as this girl who had arrived on his doorstep soaking wet and covered in mud. She was honest, she was kind, she was genuine, and she could feel a pea through 40 layers of bedding. She was, without a doubt, a true princess. "Rosalind," Alexander said, taking her hand gently, "I've traveled the whole world looking for someone real, someone true, and here you are, delivered to my door by a storm. Would you stay a while longer? I'd love to show you the gardens and the library." And Rosalind smiled that warm, wonderful smile of hers. "I'd like that very much." And so Rosalind stayed. Days turned into weeks, weeks turned into months. She and Alexander explored every corner of the castle together. They read books side by side in the great library. They walked through the meadows and talked about their dreams. And one beautiful spring morning, Prince Alexander asked Princess Rosalind to marry him. She said yes, of course. Their wedding was the grandest celebration the kingdom had ever seen. People came from far and wide to see the prince and his princess, the girl who had arrived in a storm and captured everyone's hearts with her kindness and her honesty. And what about the pea? Well, the Queen had it placed in a glass case in the Royal Museum, where it sits to this very day. A little sign beneath it reads, "The pea that found a princess." Because sometimes the smallest things can lead to the biggest discoveries, and sometimes the truest treasures come to us not when we're searching for them, but when we least expect it on a stormy night with a knock at the door. Prince Alexander and Princess Rosalind ruled their kingdom with kindness and wisdom. They always opened their doors to travelers in storms, and they never forgot that being real and true was more important than looking perfect. And they lived happily, with full hearts and cozy nights for the rest of their days. The end. Thank you so much for listening to today's fairy tale. I hope Rosalind's story reminded you that being your true self is the most royal thing you can be. If you'd like to hear more magical stories, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an adventure. Until next time, sweet dreams, little dreamers.